Hello and welcome to the viewers of this video. This is the Orange Fan here, bringing you another entry for the episode Recap and Thoughts category. This video will be dedicated to the A segment of episode 66 of The Loud House, Scales of Justice. We begin this segment at Tall Timbers Park, where we see Lana and Hops visiting a pair of fish that live in the pond in this park. Lana calls this pair of fish the Fishmans, and the Fishmans are expecting many eggs to hatch very soon. Lana tries to count the number of eggs present, but decides to just round the number up to 100. Suddenly, a bulldozer arrives in front of the pond, and when the bulldozer arrives, it causes mud to cover Lana and Hops. A lily pad is now on top of Lana's head, too. The construction worker controlling the bulldozer reveals to Lana that Tall Timbers Park recently became the property of the Mustard Warehouse. The Mustard Warehouse is planning to build a new store in the park, and the construction worker has received instructions to fill the pond in today. Lana objects to this because the pond is the Fishman's home, and at first, the construction worker mistakes the Fishmans to be a human couple and suggests that they call a lawyer. That's actually a running gag throughout this segment. Several characters mistaking the Fishmans to be a human couple and suggesting that they call a lawyer. But in any case, Lana clarifies that the Fishmans are actual fish, and the construction worker laughs about this and says something along the lines of, "Who cares, they're just fish." And the construction worker also suggests that Lana just put the Fishmans in a tank. Lana says that relocating the parents means relocating the eggs too. And Lana says that trying to relocate the eggs could prove fatal for the eggs, but the construction worker shows no sympathy towards Lana's concerns and prepares to re-enter the bulldozer. But before he does re-enter the bulldozer, Lana says that one of the construction worker's shoes is untied. And yes, one of the shoes of the construction worker actually is untied. So the construction worker stops to tie his shoelaces. And while he's distracted doing that, Hops proceeds to remove some of the bolts from the bulldozer. So by the time the construction worker finishes tying his shoes, and when he re-enters the bulldozer to try and start it up again, the bulldozer falls apart, and the construction worker decides that he'll just postpone filling the pond in until tomorrow. After the construction worker leaves, Lana praises Hops for removing some of the bolts from the bulldozer, saying that they were able to stall for time to come up with a solution. So the next scene takes us to the Loud House. Lana and Hops are still covered in mud with the lily pad on top of Lana's head, and so Lana is tracking mud into the Loud House when she enters the Loud House. And when Lana enters the kitchen, that's where the Loud parents are right now, and the Loud parents are made aware of Lana tracking mud in the house. The Loud parents point this out to Lana, that she's tracking mud in the house, but Lana says that she doesn't have time to change or clean up because she has a crisis on her hands. That's along the lines of what she says. So the Loud parents put on some oven mitts, and they pull out a bag, and they put Lana in the bag so that Lana can walk around the house without tracking any more mud. So while the Loud parents are putting Lana in this bag, Lana proceeds to explain about how a store is being planned to be built where the Fishmans live. So after that running gag where the Loud parents, the Loud parents are the next characters in this running gag to mistake the Fishmans for a human couple and suggesting they call a lawyer. So after that, Lana clarifies that the Fishmans are actual fish and they live in a pond in Tall Timbers Park. And after Lana proceeds to explain this and how she doesn't want to see the Fishmans lose their home, the Loud parents are reminded of their own past. Yes, the Loud parents comment about how Lana acting like an activist reminds them of the times when they were activists. The Loud parents list off a few examples of when they were activists. And then after that, after listing a few examples, the Loud parents suggest to Lana that she start a petition. Lana doesn't know what a petition is, so the Loud parents explain that Lana would go door to door and collect signatures from anyone who would be willing to sign the petition. And the Loud parents also explain that Lana would need to acquire addresses, emails, and phone numbers. And the Loud parents also mentioned that Lana would have to acquire signatures from half of the citizens of Royal Woods. And Rita estimates that number to be somewhere in the ballpark of 10,000. Lana is surprised to hear this. She didn't think 10,000 was a real number, although the Loud parents confirm it is a real number. And but Lana Lana thinks that, Lana wonders if having all of these signatures means that the construction will stop. Yes, Lana questions if gathering all of those signatures will stop the construction. But the Loud parents clarify that gathering all of those signatures will simply delay the construction, and a public hearing will be in place. So the Loud parents are explaining more of this, but eventually, the Loud parents' voices are replaced with trumpet sounds. It's meant to be a reference to how the adults sound in the Peanuts franchise. So the next scene takes us to the second floor of the Loud house. Lana is hopping up the stairs in the bag, and she's hopping down the hallway. Lana is talking to Hops. Yes, Lana comments to Hops about how they're going to have a long day on their hands, and figures that she should go to the bathroom before beginning the petition. So Lana heads to the bathroom, and Lenny is already in the bathroom fixing up her eyebrows. And while Lenny is fixing her eyebrows, she's looking in the mirror, and she sees Lana's reflection in the mirror. But because Lana is still covered in mud, and because she still has that lily pad on her head, Lenny mistakes Lana to be some sort of monster, and runs out of the bathroom, saying that she's never going to use that bathroom again. And after that happened, Lana looks at her own reflection in the mirror and now realizes that Lenny thought Lana was a monster. And Lana then comments to Hops about how there might be an easier solution to stop the construction that threatens the Fishmans' home. So after that, we do see a montage which shows Lana and Hops gathering some other items throughout the Loud house, and eventually Lana and Hops head to the woods, and they manage to convince some other animals to help them with their cause of saving the Fishman's home. So eventually the construction worker, after this montage, we get a scene that shows the construction worker fixing up the bulldozer, and the construction worker enters the bulldozer and starts it up. But before the construction worker can actually do anything else with the bulldozer, he sees what seems to be a swamp monster, and the construction worker begins to panic. The construction worker manages to take a picture of the swamp monster with his phone, commenting about how no one else would believe him without any proof. And then the construction worker retreats. After the construction worker runs away, we find out that this swamp monster is actually Lana, Hops, and those animals in disguise. And the Fishmans are grateful for Lana, Hops, and those other animals for scaring away the construction worker. So the next scene takes us to the Loud house. Lana returns home. She's no longer covered in mud, by the way. And we see at least the Loud parents and Lenny are watching TV. And Rita points out to Lana that Tall Timbers Park is being talked about on the news right now. So Lana joins in to see what the news is talking about with regards to the pond. So the news reporter who appeared in earlier entries of the series is talking about Tall Timbers Park. And we finally find out the name for this news reporter. Her name is revealed to be Catherine Mulligan. So Catherine Mulligan explains about how a swamp monster was seen at Tall Timbers Park. And the construction worker is telling Catherine Mulligan about the swamp monster and shows Catherine the picture of the alleged swamp monster. While the news report is going on, Catherine Mulligan actually receives new information and proceeds to tell anyone who's watching the news what this new information is. The information is that the Mustard Warehouse has decided to relocate where they're going to build the new store, and Lana is glad to hear that the Mustard Warehouse won't be building the store in Tall Timbers Park. And the Loud parents do comment about how how they think that, the Loud parents say something along the lines about how they do think that it was great that Lana was willing to put a lot of effort into gathering signatures. Yes, the Loud parents say something along the lines about how they're proud of Lana for trying to gather up signatures for the petition, even though it turned out that it was unnecessary. Lana didn't actually go around gathering signatures, but she plays along with what the Loud parents think so that they won't catch on to what really happened. And when Lana claims that she was very close to gathering 10,000 signatures, Lenny is surprised to hear that 10,000 is an actual number. Lenny then comments that she's glad that the swamp monster isn't in their bathroom anymore, but the Loud parents aren't really paying attention to what Lenny just said. They just say something along the lines of, "Oh yeah, that's nice." So after that, the next scene takes us to Tall Timbers Park. Lana and Hops are planning to go visit the Fishmans again. Yes, Lana and Hops are planning to visit the Fishmans again, but suddenly they notice that a great number of people have gathered around the pond. And Catherine Mulligan and several other news crew members have also gathered at the pond. Flip is also present too. He's trying to sell some swamp monster related merchandise. Lana sees Catherine Mulligan and inquires her about what's going on. Catherine Mulligan, while bringing up her name, Catherine Mulligan proceeds to explain to Lana Catherine Mulligan explains to Lana that the sighting of a swamp monster has gathered media attention, and many people have gathered to see this swamp monster for themselves. And Catherine Mulligan is explaining this in the style of delivering a news report. She actually does calls herself in the third person, or yes, Catherine Mulligan refers to herself in the third person. And Lana tries to convince the news crew members and the other individuals present that they need to be careful because of the fish eggs that are in the pond and how the fish eggs are extremely delicate. Lana also comments about how they need quiet. They need some peace and tranquility. Lana comments along the lines about how the fragile eggs need peace and tranquility. But no one really pays much attention to Lana's concerns. Lana then questions how long the media attention will last for. Catherine Mulligan then explains that the news crew members and the other individuals present, for that matter, aren't going to leave until the swamp monster relocates to a different location. And Catherine Mulligan once again delivers this explanation in the style of a news report while referring to herself in the third person. So Lana then gets an idea. Yes, hearing that people are going to stick around the pond until the swamp monster leaves gives Lana an idea. So yes, at a later point in time, or yes, later on, we see a new scene. Yes, the next scene takes us to Short Shrub Creek at a later point in time, and we see that there are several individuals that are at this location. Lenny and Becky are one of the people at Short Shrub Creek. Yes, Lenny and Becky are one of the Lenny and Becky are some of the characters present at Short Shrub Creek right now. They're having a picnic right now. But we quickly see that Lana, Hops, and several of the other animals are preparing their swamp monster costume again, or they're putting on their swamp monster costume again. And Lana admits that she feels bad about scaring the people that are at Short Shrub Creek right now, but she says that she thinks it's the only way to get people to leave Tall Timbers Park. So yes, Lana, Hops, and the other animals put on their swamp monster costume, and they start to put on a show in order to scare away the people that are at Short Shrub Creek. And it works. So yes, Lenny, Becky, and the other people that are at Short Shrubs Creek right now, Lenny, Becky, and the other people at Short Shrub Creek right now see the swamp monster, they panic, and they make a run for it. So the next scene takes us back to Tall Timbers Park, and Catherine Mulligan tells her fellow news crew members about how the swamp monster is now at Short Shrub Creek, and they're going to head there now. And once again, Catherine Mulligan delivers this in the style of a news report while referring to herself in the third person. And one of the news crew members actually points out that it's unnecessary for Catherine Mulligan to refer to herself in the third person because they already know her name. But yes, Catherine Mulligan, the other news crew members, and the other people that were at Tall Timbers Park then leave. Although Flip is still present. Flip is still present, and he's trying to see if anyone else, or he's still trying to sell some Swamp Monster related merchandise. But I'm sure eventually Flip probably leaves too. So in any case, though, after the majority of the people have left, Lana talks to the Fishmans and tells them that she got all the people that were interested in the Swamp Monster to leave Tall Timbers Park. So the next scene takes us back to the Loud House, and it's a later point in time. Lana and Hops are watching the news on TV, and Catherine Mulligan is reporting about how the swamp monster was now seen at Short Shrub Creek. But Catherine Mulligan reveals that the Mustard Warehouse was actually planning to relocate the construction of the store to Short Shrubs Creek. But now that the swamp monster is at Short Shrubs Creek, the Mustard Warehouse is planning to go back to their original plan of constructing a store in Tall Timbers Park. And Lana is surprised to hear this. Lana realizes that her actions actually ended up putting her back where she started from originally, with the Fishman's home being in danger of, with the pond being filled in. Yes, Lana comments along the lines about how her actions ended up bringing her right back where she started from, with construction threatening the home of the Fishmans. And Lana admits to Hops that she probably should have listened to her parents' advice and tried to gather up some signatures through a petition. Looking at the time, Lana figures that she might still have enough time to try and gather up signatures for the petition. So Lana starts by going to Bud Grouse's house and trying to get Bud Grouse to sign the petition. like the Loud parents and the construction worker, Bud Grouse mistakes the Fishmans for a human couple that should call a lawyer. But after Lana clarifies that, Bud Grouse agrees to sign the petition because he's not a big fan of mustard, or he says something along those lines anyway. So we then see a quick montage which shows Lana gathering more signatures for the petition. And eventually Lana does return home. And yes, Rita comments about how they saw the news report relating to the construction happening at Tall Timbers Park again. And Rita brings up how Catherine Mulligan reported the news, but she actually doesn't know Catherine Mulligan's name. She just calls Catherine Mulligan what's her name. And Lana comments about how she knew about that and she was trying to gather up 10,000 signatures. And Lynn Sr. inquires how that went, and Lana admits that she wasn't able to gather enough signatures. Rita, though, tries to comfort Lana by saying that she did the best that she could, but Lana then admits to her parents that she actually tried to take the easy way out with regards to solving this crisis, and she also admits that her attempts to take the easy way out ended up backfiring, and Lana says that it was too late to do anything when she actually decided to do things the proper way. That's along the lines of what Lana says. But Lynn Sr. says that they're proud of Lana for realizing her mistake and trying to make it right, or yes, trying to go about things the right way after acknowledging her mistake. Lana, though, thinks that it still was too late to do anything about the Fishmans, and when Lana then collapses to the ground in despair, and when she does so, some of the items that Lana was holding drops to the ground too. And one of those items is a picture of the Fishmans, and Lisa actually notices the picture. Lisa actually points out to Lana that Lana doesn't need to worry about lawyers or signatures in order to save the Fishmans. Lisa reveals that the Fishmans are lake sturgeons. Yes, Lisa says that the Fishmans are lake sturgeons. That's their species or subspecies, race, whatever you want to call them. That's the type of fish that they are. And Lisa explains that lake sturgeons are an endangered type of fish, and they're actually protected because they're endangered. So Lana, and yes, once Lisa spells out, and yes, Lana still doesn't fully understand what Lisa means, so Lisa has to spell it out that endangered, that the Fishmans being endangered means that no one can touch their home. Yes, Lisa says it's a federal law that no one can touch the Fishman's home, and Lana is pleased to hear this. Lisa is then proceeding to start a speech, but like the Loud parents earlier, Lisa starts to sound like those trumpet sounds that the adults make in the Peanuts franchise. But then we find out that the trumpet sounds was actually coming from Luna, who was playing the trumpet. And Lisa is annoyed that Luna was playing the trumpet while she was trying to give a lecture. So after that, the next scene takes us back to Tall Timbers Park. And there's a sign in front of the pond that mentions that it's protected by federal law. And Lana comments about how the Fishmans are now protected by federal law, which means no one can cause trouble for their home in the future and ever again. And by this point in time, the Fishmans' babies have hatched by now. So Lana encourages the Fishman parents to have fun and enjoy themselves while she, Lana, and Hops babysit the Fishman's babies. So yes, the Fishman babies. So yes, Lana and Hops proceed to supervise the Fishman babies while the Fishman parents go off to have fun and enjoy themselves. And after Lana dives into the pond, and she's not visible on the surface right now. So after Lana is underneath, while Lana is underwater, Lenny and Becky arrive to set up a picnic. And Lenny is nervous about setting up the picnic because this was where the swamp monster was originally sighted. Because Lenny is nervous about setting a picnic up at Tall Timbers Park because Tall Timbers Park was where the swamp monster was originally seen at. But Becky assures Lenny that Catherine Mulligan had commented about how the swamp monster hasn't been seen at Tall Timbers Park for a while now. But like Rita earlier, Becky doesn't remember Catherine Mulligan's name and just calls her what's her name. But then, before Lenny and Becky have a chance to really set up before Lenny and Becky can actually start the picnic, though, Lana emerges from underwater, and Lana is covered in mud, and she has a lily pad on her head again, like she did earlier in the segment. So Lenny and Becky mistake Lana for the swamp monster, and Lenny and Becky proceed to make a run for it, and that is how we end this segment. So this segment gives Lana the spotlight, and Lana is also the viewpoint character. This is another example this is another example of season 3 this is another example of season 3 showing Lincoln take a back seat and not always be the viewpoint character for an entry. So in this case, Lana was the viewpoint character and the spotlight character for this entry. And this segment actually does have a similar plot to an earlier entry, a season 2 entry. Yes, this segment, Scales of Justice, is similar to Frogs Wild from season 2 in the sense that both of them feature the Liberate the Animals plot. And there are some differences, though. It's executed a little differently. And I brought up before my general stance on tropes, ideas, plots, or concepts is that my general stance on tropes, ideas, plots, or concepts is that I care more about the execution above how many times it's been done. If there's any case where, execution is what I look for the most, and in cases where there might be a trope or a plot that I might not be too fond of, it's really more because of a track record of poor execution than anything else. I'm willing to give a well-executed example of a trope or a plot a lot of credit. But yes, I generally am not a fan of I do feel that there are some tropes or plots, ideas, or concepts that do seem to have a track record of poor execution. And I brought it up before, I do think the Liberate the Animals plot is one of those plots that I feel has a track record of being poorly executed. And that's why I wasn't the biggest fan of Frogs Wild, and I wasn't really fond of Ruthless People there was a bit of Ruthless People that had the Liberate the Animals plot, and I felt that was poorly executed. And in Frogs Wild, though, I did give credit that there were things I did think Frogs Wild did execute well, even if I still think it wasn't an overall well-executed example. I still think it executed certain details better than other examples of the Liberate the Animals plot. And that's what I feel here, too. I wouldn't call it the best executed example of the Liberate the Animals plot, but I still give Scales of Justice credit for executing certain details pretty well. I probably would say this segment is a better executed example of the Liberate the Animals plot when compared to Frogs Wild. But even then, that's even if I wouldn't call it the best executed example, I still give it credit for being at least better executed than Frogs Wild or Ruthless People. Now, what is it about Scales of Justice that I think was well executed? For one thing, it was actually the detail about how Lana tried to get rid of how Lana tried to take the easy way out of getting the construction to stop, and it ended up backfiring, and it eventually led to the point where Lana was right back where she started from, with the pond in Tall Timbers Park being planned to be filled in so that a store can be built there. Now, in some cases, some people would say, in some cases, the whole situation where a character tries to do something, but it ends up becoming meaningless, or their actions eventually lead them to being right back where they started from. A poorly executed example of that can usually lead to can lead to it feeling like it was just a waste of time or just an excuse to try and fill up the runtime. Yeah, that's what I would call a poorly executed example. But like I said, while I wouldn't call Scales of Justice the best executed example of the Liberate the Animals plot, I do give Scales of Justice credit for executing or I feel Scales of Justice executed the we're right back where we started from situation well. That part I felt was well executed. To me, it didn't feel like it was just done to pad out the runtime of the segment. It felt like it was actually done to illustrate a point. And yeah, I do think they were able to illustrate the point about what happens when you try to take the easy way out. Now, of course, there are situations where it is better to do things an easier way. Yes, there are some situations where people might make things harder for themselves than they really need to. But I think, again, that's kind of a case-by-case situation. Depending on cases where you'd rather take the easy solution over the harder solution, that's a case-by-case situation. It really depends on the context. And in this case, though, yes, I would say this is an example of where taking the easy way out was not the right way to go about things. I think that fit the context. So yeah, that's what I will give them credit for. I do think Lana trying to take the easy way out to get the construction worker to stop construction at Tall Timbers Park, I think that was a well-executed example of showing what happens when you try to take the easy way out in a situation where taking the easy way out is not the right thing to do. So I do think that part was well executed. I give them credit for that part. And otherwise, I do think this segment still did have some funny moments to it. Like I did like the joke about how people mistook the Fishmans for a human couple and suggesting that they call a lawyer. And I did like the joke about how Catherine Mulligan felt the need to keep saying her name all the time or referring to herself in the third person and talking to people like she's presenting a news report. And I did like the joke where one of her fellow news crew members pointed out, you don't need to keep saying your name, we know your name. But other people like Rita and Becky actually didn't know Catherine Mulligan's name, even though she kept repeating her name. I did think that was actually pretty funny. And I think part of why I thought that was pretty funny was because this is when Catherine Mulligan's name is actually said out loud in the series itself. Or yes, this is when we, the viewers, first find out Catherine Mulligan's name. So we didn't know her name for the longest time. We finally hear her name. And I thought the joke about her constantly saying her name in the segment that reveals her name and people still not knowing her name in universe, I actually thought that was a pretty funny joke. But yeah, I do appreciate that we now know Catherine Mulligan's name. And otherwise, I did like the swamp monster routine. I thought that was there were a few gags with the swamp monster that I thought was pretty funny too, like how Lenny mistook the swamp monster and how Lenny's comments about the swamp monster not being in their bathroom anymore didn't really get a reaction from the Loud parents, or the Loud parents not really paying attention when Lenny brought up the swamp monster in the bathroom. I thought that was funny, and I did like how Flip was trying to sell swamp monster related merchandise. That definitely felt in character for him. And so yeah, there were some good parts about this segment, and I do think overall it was a better executed example of the Liberate the Animals plot compared to Frogs Wild, but I still, thought it wasn't the best executed example. But I will give it credit for being a better executed example than Frogs Wild, at least through my perspective. And otherwise, I guess a few other details worth pointing out, or that I liked, was I noticed how Renee was in the background for some of the scenes. Yes, Renee was present in the background for some of the scenes. I think it was the scenes at Tall Timbers Park. And Renee was also present in Past Your Bedtime, now that I think about it. She was at Girl Jordan's pool party. And I do bring that up because Renee was a character that I thought had a lot of potential. Or yes, Renee is a character that I feel has a lot of potential. She was the friend of Zach's from Back Out There, who is a fellow Ace Savvy fan. So yeah, I do like that the show acknowledges Renee still, even if Back Out There was really her only fairly major roles so far. So seeing Renee still pop up here and there gives me hope that maybe Renee will return in a more prevalent role in the future. I do think there's a lot of potential for her character being a fellow Ace Savvy fan who's in the same age group that Lincoln and his inner circle are in. So, and oh yeah, her status as a friend of Zach's also gives her some potential too for, yeah, I think there's potential both with her being a friend of Zach's and also being a fellow Ace Savvy fan that's in Lincoln's age group. So, yeah, I'm hoping that Renee will appear again in the future in a more prevalent role. So seeing her still pop up in the background every now and then does reassure me that at least the staff and crew members didn't forget about Renee. So maybe there's a chance we'll see her return in a more prevalent role. But otherwise, yeah, that might be about it. So once again, to clarify or to summarize, yeah, I feel the Liberate the Animals plot is a plot that has a track record of poor execution, but I do give this segment credit for executing certain details very well. Particularly, I do think they executed the right back where we started from situation well. That was a well-executed part, I feel. And I do think it executed the Liberate the Animals trope better than Frogs Wild did, even if I still feel it's not the best executed example. I did like seeing Lenny and Becky. Yes, I did like seeing Becky return. Seeing Lenny and Becky hanging out also brings up friend Z, with how Becky was one of the friends that Lenny invited over, although Becky was also considered a friend to Lori. So I guess you could say seeing Lenny and Becky hanging out kind of does give fans or yes, that does kind of help to reaffirm how some fans do think Becky might be more so Lenny's friend than Lori's friend, or at least that Becky is friends with both Lori and Lenny. And some fans do take that to mean maybe Becky is more Lenny's friend, but it does give some fans some ideas for fan works, showing how Lenny and Becky, the idea that Becky might be more so Lenny's friend than Lori's friend does give some fans some insight on how they might want to come up with some fan works in the future. And otherwise, yeah, I did like learning Catherine Mulligan's name, and I did like the joke surrounding her name, partially because she kept bringing up her name in this segment when they first revealed it, and even though one of her fellow news crew members said that her name was they already knew her name, people still didn't know Catherine Mulligan's name even when she repeated it. I thought that was a funny joke. I thought there were some other funny jokes like the Fishmans calling a lawyer. And yeah, I thought there were some funny moments. Maybe not my favorite entry in season 3, but I wouldn't call it a bad entry. I just feel that it was maybe not the best executed example of a plot that I feel has a track record of poor execution, but I still give it credit for being well executed in some ways, and think it's overall better executed than Frogs Wild, which tried that plot earlier, back in season 2. So I would say that's about it for this segment. So as of this video, we've now discussed the A segment of episode 66 of The Loud House on this channel. Take care, and until next time.